Hi, my name is Patricia Kathleen, and this podcast series will contain interviews I conduct with women, female identified, and non binary individuals regarding their professional stories and personal narrative as it relates to their perspective. This podcast is designed to hold a space for all individuals to learn from their counterparts, regardless of age, status, or industry. We intend to transparently investigate the evolving global dialogue regarding underrepresented figures in all industries across the USA and abroad. By hosting these stories and conversations, we aim to contribute to the changing platform and representation of these individuals for the future. Now let's start the conversation. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I'm your host, Patricia, and today we are sitting down with Sheena Russell. Sheena is the founder and CEO of Made with Local. You can find out more about it and our conversation about everything we unpack today at www.madewithlocal.ca. Welcome, Sheena.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on. I'm excited to talk to you and unpack everything. For everyone listening, I will give you a brief bio on Sheena before I start peppering her with questions. But prior to that, a roadmap for today's podcast, just so for those of you that are new can kind of follow along and realize where we're kind of pulling all of our inquiries from. We'll first look at unpacking Sheena's academic and professional background, and then we'll turn straight to unpacking Made with Local. And we'll first look at the logistics and then turn some of our inquiry towards the ethos and the philosophy behind the company, which it pulls heavily from it being a B Corp and things of that nature. And then we'll turn towards goals and plans that Sheena has both for herself and Made with Local moving forward for the next 1 to 3 years. This is an area that has changed greatly with a lot of people with the most recent COVID-19 pandemic upon us. And then we'll wrap everything up with goals or advice that Sheena may have for those of you who are looking to get involved, maybe emulate some of her success. So before we get started, a quick bio on Sheena. Sheena Russell is founder and CEO of Made with Local, a health snacks company based in Nova Scotia. What started as a farmer's market table in 2012 has grown into a nationally distributed brand known for delicious real food bars and their innovative social impact production model. You can find Made with Local's products in 1,000 retailers all across Canada. So again, their website is www.madewithlocal.ca. So Sheena, before we jump into kind of unpacking Made with Local, and I love it. I really kind of climbed through all of the aspects of your website, and I can't wait to kind of pepper you with questions. But before we get to that, I was hoping you could kind of describe your academic and professional background prior to launching the company.
Sure. So I grew up in PEI, born and raised rural Prince Edward Island girl. And out of high school, I did 1 year at the University of Prince Edward Island, and then recognized that it kind of felt like high school 2.0, that kind of hometown university, and applied to go to Dalhousie University here in Halifax and got accepted, which was really exciting because I was one of the first people in my pretty large extended family to go off island for post-secondary. So got accepted into Dal to do a Bachelor of Science with a focus in environmental sustainability. So that was perfectly in line with my passion even as a kid. I've always been really sustainability and environmentally conscious as minded, even as a 10-year-old. So that was always my path, right? I ended up at Dal to do a bachelor's degree, and then pretty quickly moved into a great job for a young person, especially after having just graduated in a government municipal position doing education for the city of Halifax's recycling program. So it was kind of felt like the jackpot at the time. So that was the job that I was working when I started Made with Local as a side hustle.
Nice. So I'm wondering, even though and we'll get into the ethos and how much that really does unite with this recycling education program that it sounds like you just started with, but it seems like entrepreneurship is not just necessarily a progressional step in a lot of people's lives. It's this kind of different trait that one has to have. Starting through farmers markets, we've talked to a couple of companies over the past 3 years that have really gotten their footing in farmers markets. And I think it's an area that a lot of people who start with a product-based startup don't realize is like this wonderful nesting place, at least in the United States. I don't know how much it varies in Canada. I have not been to a Canadian farmers market, but it's this great place where you get this culmination of testing, immediate feedback. You know, there's all of these very quick things that larger companies or companies that don't have access to their consumers, their customers get at a farmer's market. And I'm wondering, when you started, did you intend on going beyond the farmer's market, or did you just want to bring a product to farmer's market?
Yeah, I completely agree with you in that the farmers markets are like the ultimate CPG incubator, right? And
Right.
I can't imagine having started a brand without having the invaluable experience of being a farmers market table for 2 years, because you get to test your pricing, you get to literally see your customers with your own two eyeballs and hear how what questions they have about the product and what flavors they tend to gravitate to and how many they buy at a time. And it's just like so juicy. But at the time I didn't realize what was happening, right? It's all hindsight for me. At the time I 100% was just like, this is just this fun little thing that I'm doing on the
Yeah.
side. And it felt, it felt, really comfortable. Right. And it was definitely tons of work, but not having, not ever imagining that I was going to be an entrepreneur as a kid and a young adult. Like I really just couldn't even fathom how far this company has gone in those really early days. Like every step we took from the farmers market into wholesale relationships with cafes and some small grocery stores, every single step felt monumental.
Yeah.
And it still feels like that sometimes today, even being in 1,000 stores coast to coast. But the intention was not right off the get-go to get huge. But now I look back and I cherish those farmers market days because they just were so important.
Yeah, well, and probably for the better. I think that the problem with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I do love dreaming big, and so there is that other side of it, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly of latter day, like they tend to be like, it's a 1.2 million gross, these great huge dreams, but it seems like everything underneath that is depressing. Or, or,
Mm.
or less than. And so this idea that you had that you were just kind of going to keep going and celebrating every small success along the way sounds like a happier route, maybe. Definitely more Canadian. I have a few new Canadian friends that sound very like, I like that kind of optimism. Um, I want to start unpacking it now since we've kind of hinted all around it and we've got into made with local. So my interest in, so in the beginning, for all the like nerdy little founders listening out there, can you get into the logistics of when was it founded? And did you have co-founders? Did you bootstrap? Did you take funding? And what products did you launch with?
Sure. So we started in 2012. And when I say we, I co-founded the company with a friend at the time. She was also working for the municipality of Halifax here. So we were work buddies that turned into co-founders. And she became pregnant with her first child pretty early on in the business. So, and I, at that point, had been fully bitten by the entrepreneurial bug. So pretty early on in the life of the company, I started moving more into like a primary founder role.
Mhm.
We launched at the Halifax Seaport Farmers Market with 4 SKUs. Well, I didn't even call them SKUs at the time, 4 flavors of bars that were
Yeah.
made with local ingredients. So Canadian grown oats, honey from a local supplier, Canadian made nut and seed butters, cranberries, blueberries, just as many ingredients as we could source from our region as possible. And this was really at the beginning of the locavore movement. Farmers markets were becoming much more of a mainstream thing, and it was just perfect timing. And in 2012, there also weren't the endless number of energy and protein bars that exist today. Like now,
Right.
it's arguably the most competitive category within natural food. But then it wasn't. So we really did stand out, and we continue to stand out in that way, and that we've retained those local suppliers. Many of the same suppliers we started with the farmers market are still our suppliers today, and we've grown their businesses because of our growth. And also our process, our manufacturing process, is still very high touch and has this incredible social impact, ripple effect that happens because we partner with social enterprises to run our production bakeries. So, and that happened in 2014. We started with our social enterprise model that allowed us to scale the company because, as
Right.
most founders know, when you're in the food product space, at a certain point, you're going to have to hand off your manufacturing to somebody else. And it feels scary as hell. But it's the only way that you can get out of the weeds and start growing your company. And that's what we did in 2012. But instead of, or sorry, in 2014, but instead of going to, a big co-packer or a big manufacturing plant, we created this beautiful relationship with an organization here in Nova Scotia that employs folks who have barriers to the mainstream workforce. And they started making our bars for us. And that, 6 years ago, they were making a few hundred bars a week, and now they're doing, 10, 20 times that. And we've scaled them up as our growth has continued on. And it's just been, a really beautiful partnership.
Yeah, and I want to make this clear for everyone listening because I think that some of these terms can be glossed over, and to understand
Sure.
it from a manufacturing or from a founding point of view is crucial. And you have a video on your website for everyone's listening that actually does a very good job. I'm very into visual interpretation of things like that, and this does a very good job of that as well. So for those of you listening, you want to hit that video up on madewithlocal.ca. But the every one of your products is handmade. It's that this is
Mm-hmm.
not a machine made process, and I think that that's crucial to understand as you start to ramp things up and as you've outsourced. I think immediately when people go to outsourcing, they go to this industry manufacturing warehouse machine made moment. That's just what
Mm-hmm.
happens, and it's about quality control. Does it taste the same? And you have this very obvious link with the ethos and the philosophy of your company that it needs to be, human touched, human intended. Your website states love, period, nourish, period, community, period. And it seems like,
Mm-hmm.
that you have stretched and really fought to maintain those three core aspects. And that's even through like the making and packaging of these things in the communities that you've outsourced to do that with. And I think it's kind of crucial. I want to get into, I am curious because this is a realm that I've never worked with or funded or done anything like that. Food is something I tend to stay away from. I study it from afar, and I eat very well. But as far as making it in mass quantities, it'd be terrifying for me. I want to know how, when you started creating the products, there's so many things to consider, right? There's not just the source that it comes from, sustainability, agriculture, things that you've obviously considered, being a B Corp and things like that. But what about allergies? How did you select flavors? What made you even go into bars? Were you just making these on the side, like for funsies with your, the recycling and education program? Like, how did all of it come to be as to that was the product that you were going to do?
Right. So I look back to 2012 when we first started, and all of it was just like so pure, and like innocent. Like I never imagined that I'd be running, a 7-figure company today. Like it's just,
Yeah.
and so the intentions in the beginning were just to create this really beautiful product using as many local ingredients as we could. And at the time I wasn't thinking about, we should do raw bars instead of baked because that will be easier to scale, or we should use this type of sweetener instead of this because, it'll work better in equipment. Like there was none of that conscious thought in the beginning because that just, really wasn't on my radar. But when it comes to allergens and key features, like the differentiator for us in the early days, and it continues to be so, is that we're using like literal food, no food like ingredients. So things like oats, peanut butter, honey, cranberries, fair trade organic dark chocolate, like real ingredients with no preservatives, no weird shit.
Yeah.
And that we weren't, and local, right? Handmade, local, and real. Like these are the things that were going to differentiate us from the countless number of bars that sit on store shelves that are literally like kind of like a paste that's squeezed out of a tube and then just enrobed in some like weird chocolate-esque kind of layer.
Mm-hmm.
That is the vast majority of protein and energy bars that you're seeing in most grocery store shelves. And there's a reason why there's so little variation in the flavor and texture of so many bars, because they're all kind of squeezed out of the same extruder machines, and you have to reverse engineer your formulations to work with the equipment. The way that mass manufacturing means that you are restricted to a certain type of texture and an ingredients deck, and we've just kind of, said screw that.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
have
So
to, they all taste, I have to say, I'm probably a little jaded. I'm not a fan of like over 99% of the bars out there. I feel like they actually got worse after the launch, and then you had labels and different things. And I don't want to call people out, even the billionaires out there, because I'm not looking to hate on anyone, but even the ones with simple names, that seemed like honest or whatever, like all of these different, I taste them and they don't taste like anything that was on the label. I don't taste any of the nuts in there. I don't taste any chocolate. I don't taste, it's just like sludge. I think you have the most perfect description for what I taste. It feels like something that came out of a tube, like astronauts
it
ate that
literally
on
is.
the moon to live.
Yeah.
Like it was not intended to be like fresh from my organic farmhouse table. It was more like, yeah, that type of that's what the experience feels like. And I think you train yourself to like it. Like people who are very into bars, I have some girlfriends that are extreme athletes, and it's a lot like that gel that they eat when they do their extreme running. They just kind of slam them. It's not an experience of food. It's different from eating. It's like, and that's kind of how they've trained themselves to have it. And so I agree with that. And I think what you're saying is right. That's the manufacturing piece that I got from your site that I was kind of educated into very briefly without identifying key factors to that. You did a really good job at just pointing out what you do and then bringing out an awareness in the viewer of what obviously is not being done with other people. This handmade, hand touched, like it's very clear that would make a difference between yours and someone else's. And to that end, I'm wondering, it sounds like your growth has been like organic, but also just like a ride you've like been piloting, but kind of as you fly. Like this like pathway. And I'm wondering, because it has been this, your growth has been this crazy trajectory from farmers markets to now being available everywhere else. And then you have the COVID, pandemic that reaches back into like online. First of all, are you available anywhere internationally? And is that on your horizon or sites? And is it possible, given that your product is so handcrafted?
Sure. Yeah, we are available online to ship internationally. So folks in the US can order through our e-commerce shop and we'll ship to your door. Easy peasy. And we are, the expansion into the US is a couple of years out for us at this point. My intention with this company is to go deep with the retailers here in Canada first, because it's a sustainable way of doing business. And there's two ways to grow a company. You either sell more in the same stores or you sell into more stores, right? And ideally you're doing both. But what you see in a lot of situations is distribution growth, but not depth at retail. And we excel at nourishing relationships with retailers, like our independent health food stores. We love them. We work very closely with them. We make sure that the staff have snacks to sample and that they really understand and experience the brand. And it just feels so much more rich as a brand and as a company. And for me as a founder, to know that we're focusing on really doing really well at the stores that we're in before we take on the next, whatever it be, chain or next market. So that's our kind of 2-year goal for now, is to continue to enrich the relationships here in Canada. But as has happened many times in our past so far, you're speaking to our growth trajectory, like we get pulled along, and not that we're not pushing the pace, of course we are, but there's lots of things that have come up for us where we've been pulled into the market by incredible demand for our product. So we'll see what happens. The intention for now, though, is to be a Canadian brand for the next 2 years in terms of retail, but e-commerce is fair game. Yeah.
I mean, you say, yeah, and you have a lot of like sage wisdom. And I wonder, where did you learn as you go? Did you enter, were you ever in an incubator? Where did you capture all of these little nuggets? You're like, we want to develop this really solid home base. Like, that's the number one thing that an investor would advise, unless they were
Mm.
trying to grow you too quickly and bankrupt you. Like, it's to develop that really sturdy root threshold so that, you have this base to kind of always return to. Um, where did you take business courses? Because I mean, as awesome as the education for recycling sounds like it would have tied into that and things of that nature, it feels like you've acquired a great deal more of education. So what I'm curious about is, did you ever go through an incubator or any type of a like-minded system in Canada, or take any business classes? Do you have a mentor you lean on, anything like that?
So I've never been part of an incubator. I've never taken a business class in university or college. And I read a lot of books, and I've had coaching. I've invested in coaching for myself consistently throughout the course of my entrepreneurial journey. I've been at this for a while. 8 years is not nothing,
Yeah.
especially in this day and age where you see businesses kind of come out of the gates guns blazing, and 2 or 3 years out they're already looking to get acquired. And we're again, like you mentioned earlier, on this kind of organic path. And I think this desire to form rich relationships is the culture of Made with Local as well, right? It's who I am as a person. We
Yeah.
form rich relationships within our company, with our suppliers, like love, nourish, community. That's the community piece, right? We don't want to just blast in a load into, hundreds of stores at a time and then just be like, cool, peace, see ya, good luck with those.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to nourish those relationships. And so it's just really, it's the cultural alignment that we make sure touches all points of Made with Local, not just amongst our team members or our suppliers, but out to the retail space as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I read a lot of books, listen to a lot of podcasts, and have had some incredible coaches over the course of my business. So
That's cool. Yeah. Business coaching, mentorship. Like, I think that and good old fashioned reading. It's good to hear
mm,
someone return to it. I'm curious. I got on your site and I saw the bars, and then you also have bar mixes.
mhm.
And I'm wondering, when the advent of those came along, I can't believe, it seems weird. I would think that in the beginning you just had the bars, but perhaps I'm wrong. And I would like to know when the bar mixes came along. And with that, if there is coming along another sibling with another product, or if you're just going to stay with those two for right now.
Yeah, the bar mix has been something that we've had in kind of like a beta format for now about 2 years.
Hmm.
I came up with the idea standing in my kitchen at home. I was making bars at home like 2.5 years ago. Don't ask me why. I'm like, I have thousands of them in boxes in my office, but for some reason I was at home making
Yeah.
bars. And I was just thinking, like, how annoying is this that I need to have all these little bags of different seeds and little odds and ends? And it's just like annoying and inconvenient, right? What if I could literally just dump a pouch into a bowl and make it like a cake mix and make granola bars? So that was my aha moment. Like, oh man, I could do that.
Yeah.
So we launched our real food bar mix back in 2018, and it was challenging to get off the ground. It's a total first to market. Like, there is no other granola bar mix in Canada at that point anywhere. And just even now looking back, the packaging wasn't descriptive enough. It wasn't educational enough. The name Real Food Bar Mix was like way too much of a mouthful, because it's not really descriptive either, because people are like, just what is this thing? So we iterated on that several times. And then just this year, in the last couple of months, I said, you know what, like, we've learned so much through these various iterations of the Real Food Bar Mix. Like, let's bring this baby together, and completely fresh design of the packaging that includes photography of the finished product. We rebranded it to be called Granola Bar Mix because that's much more palatable.
Yeah.
And also happened to launch it in retail during a time when the Nielsen data was telling us that baking categories in grocery stores were experiencing like 7x growth. So we just launched it into a chain of grocery stores here in Canada called Loblaws. They have about 500 stores across Canada. And, we all know in this COVID era, we were seeing the baking aisles ransacked, right? So we have this super awesome, perfected, tried and tested product that's now out on the market, our granola bar mix, and ready for people to enjoy.
So auspicious, that timing.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. I know.
unbelievable. That's amazing. And I do like it. I saw it and I thought, I like that. Like, I wonder why I hadn't seen more of it. And it seems more trustworthy when you're with your bars. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the sludge we were talking about, the toothpaste, the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that's coming out of, you can't get that in its like baking mix format, because then it would just be a whole bunch of different weird pastes labeled like
Exactly.
fig,
Powders.
chocolate. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. It kind of
Totally.
points
Well,
to your product.
that granola bar mix is literally like the 1/10 batch size of our real food bars. Like, it is our recipe. We are teaching you how to make real food bars in your own kitchen. And that's something where, so COVID had also shut down our real food bar production facility here in Nova Scotia on March 13th. So 3 months ago, we lost all ability to make our packaged bars.
Right.
And it was terrifying because our grocery purchase orders were going through the roof, and we were just like, hands up, being like, we don't have anything to sell you. But again, just being able to really put the turbo charge behind the granola bar mix, and for it to pick up the slack, so to speak, in that time was pretty amazing. And we were joking, like, we can't make our bars for you, but you can make our bars for yourself now. So the granola bar mix it was an amazing launch, and it's ongoing still. It's really exciting.
It is. It's clever, and it's necessary. It's cool that you came up with it, just doing it in your kitchen. I like the idea of. I thought about it because I am by no means a Martha Stewart, but I have a very creative brain, or I would say it's a very like wandering brain. And so when
Mm-hmm.
I saw it, I was like, "Ooh, you could make them into any shape you wanted. You could do like a cube. You could do like a bunny mold. You could do like anything you wanted with when you're making your own bars. You can kind of play around with different visual aspects that I thought are like, it's creative, it's cool, it brings it
Absolutely.
back into like making it one's own. I like that a
One
lot.
thing that's yeah, and you're absolutely right. Like, we talked to people and have an entire recipe section on our website, so people can look up recipes with fun and creative ways to make the granola bar mix. Super easy to make, like little energy balls. We've had people around Christmas time do little gingerbread men. Like, there's just so many fun ways
Yeah.
to play with it. And my favorite thing about the granola bar mix, aside from it just being an amazing product, is again, we've really embedded our values right in the execution of this product, in that when we're making our bars, we know that there's literally love baked into them because we have these social enterprise partnerships. But when you buy our granola bar mix to make it at home, you're going to see on the preparation instructions on the back, there's step number 4, which includes a little note about taking a 10-second pause to send vibes of, love and gratitude into your
Yeah.
bars. And then you just move on into, pressing them into the pan and putting them in the oven. So we inspire our customers in that moment when they're making our bars to take a little moment to be like, okay, you know what, this is real food made by real people, and I'm grateful for it. And just,
Yeah.
a little cute prompt to take a little pause. So
I
that's
love that.
something that people are loving.
I love it too. And I don't think it like I would go beyond saying it's cute. Like, I used to think I was the only one. I would say I can taste angry food,
Mm,
at restaurants, but I just felt like I could taste food where someone was just like, ugh, enough with that, and I was always
100%.
very sensitive to it. And I thought I was being frilly and stupid and silly, and not stupid, just a little silly. And I was watching Top Chef, and Tom Colicchio was like, that food tastes angry. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
ha, I'm validated. This amazing American chef is like, nah, I can taste the anger in it. And it's like this hastiness he was describing even the chop value of the vegetable and things like that. But it's the antithesis, or it validates what you're saying with this intention. I think every wonderful chef, from the home chef up to the greatest Michelin star, would say like that intention and the accuracy and the emotion flowing into it. You can absolutely, it's an art. You can feel it. You can interpret
Mm-hmm.
it as a person eating it later on. So I love that you put that in there. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, with goals, we talked about how you want to like really root into your Canadian stronghold before you start branching too far out. But outside of that, have you looked at your next 1 to 3 years because of the COVID? It must have re-solidified this conversation with you where you're like, I'm really glad we launched the the mixes and things like that. Do you have any other goals on the next like 1 to 3 year horizon aside from like cementing into Canada with like product development or anything like that you're going to look at? Or are you just going to stay on the path that you've kind of already described?
Yeah, I'm really excited to continue on with developing some more products around this baking mix line. I've joked to some of my team about wanting to dig in on this concept of like millennial baking mixes, right? Like the baking
Yeah.
category is super dusty, and it's just, it needs to be, there needs to be some reinvigoration in the baking mix category because, man, I know for sure that I can use some kitchen hacks in my life, and I love and I'm very committed to feeding my family simple, nourishing foods. But like sometimes you just don't, you need help, you need a hack. So I feel very strongly about creating some products that align and extend that product line as our granola bar mix is doing. So from an R&D perspective, that's where my heart is kind of leading me right now. And then, other things that we're working on the manufacturing and our social impact side include creating a second production hub in central Canada, in Ontario. And that's something that definitely bucks the trend also of large scale manufacturers, where it's all about centralizing and efficiencies. And it's just these massive food systems that is efficiency over everything, right? And
Yeah.
we've seen through COVID that these massive corporate archaic food systems get fucked up whenever things go sideways, right? Like look at all these meat packing plants and these huge conglomerates. Like as soon as there's something really dire happening in the world, they're not agile enough to respond. And who's picking up the slack for that? All the small farmers and food producers and entrepreneurs who can pop up an online shop in a night on Shopify and all of a sudden can service their community, or can bring their entire farmers market online and are now delivering thousands of boxes to their community every week. Like it's just incredible, the agility of small scale decentralized food systems. And that's something that we are using as our model to scale our production, because people hear our story and they hear about how our bars are handmade, and like the number one thing I get asked is, well, how are you going to scale that? And it's which is a valid question. And we have, right, we've successfully scaled the business to this point, and instead of deciding, okay, we've gotten to here, but now it's time to finally, take the big leap to full automation in a centralized plant. We are going to build out a second production hub with the model that we've created here in Atlantic Canada on the East Coast, and replicate it with local farmers, local food producers, and a social enterprise in central Canada that will service customers in that market. So creating some redundancy, which is a good thing if you have a tight system, and engaging more farmers and food producers, and also reducing our climate footprint, because you're not shipping ingredients and finished product crisscrossing, coast to coast, which is what we're currently doing. So that is something that we're working on right now. And we've identified a really amazing social enterprise partner in Toronto that is going to be our new partner. Yeah. So
And
it's
then
really exciting.
will it be Vancouver after that, do you think? Will you
Yeah.
have like
Yeah. That's the plan.
Nice. That sounds right. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that idea. And I think you're completely right. I think that it is antithetical, but so is your entire company, and it's working out beautifully, so I say, stay the course.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, our time is running out, and we're to one of my favorite pieces of the podcast, which is I get to describe to you, if you were at a safe, socially distanced place in a garden or a park tomorrow, and a young woman or a female identified or non-binary individual, anyone pretty much other than a cisgendered white man, walked up to you and said, listen, Sheena, I've done my schooling. I had kind of like this wonderful dream job. I was educating people in recycling and environmental issues, but I'm gonna launch this great startup. I'm not sure exactly where it's headed. I'm gonna take it to the farmers markets. This baked goods situation. Feel pretty confident in it. What are the top 3 pieces of advice you would give that individual, knowing what you know now?
So number one would be like, mentorship and coaching is so critical. It has been critical to my journey. So I very early on was lucky enough to receive some funding that I could invest in a pretty high-powered coach who's now one of my, a very close friend of mine. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be, coffee with a mentor, but finding mentorship is, I think, one of the most critical things, because it can be really lonely. Entrepreneurship can feel very isolating, and which is a crazy thing to say in this day and age where, of course, there's podcasts and Instagram and like more information than any of us really need. But it can still feel isolating. And I've been through that myself. So I would say mentorship is huge. What else? If we're talking about a product-based product, I would say like have a production plan in place for understanding how eventually you will hand off your production when it's time for you to, work on your business instead of in your business. It doesn't have to be something that happens right away. And I actually suggest to any entrepreneurs in food that you yourself are very invested and very involved in manufacturing in the early days, because then you intimately know your process and the costs associated with that, and then how to create and invest in efficiencies. So that would be, the succession plan out of your own manufacturing is one thing I would say is really critical. And, just being unabashedly your own brand, keeping your blinders on to an extent on what other people are doing, and just double down on what makes you, and not being scared to use a voice in your brand that you haven't seen anywhere else, because that will be your superpower.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has been yours, at least I think. It really is. I want people to get on your website, because I really I think people will agree with me. I always think people will agree with me after I've explained myself, but I think in this case, they really will when they hit your website and kind of get a feel for the video and understanding. You guys do a great deal about talking about the ethos of your company. But okay, back to the advice. I have mentorship and coaching is crucial in the beginning, number one. Number two, have a production succession plan in place for the future handoff, but be very aware of the process as you begin it yourself. Number three, be unabashedly proud of your own brand and aware. I love that. Mm-hmm. I think those three are so crucial, and they speak to, I think people really get lost sometimes in these make sure your funding's down, all of these kind of crazy logistical things that for your story were possibly less crucial. And also you lose the beauty and, and the three, the love, nourish, and community, your three on your website, in that. And with that, you lose the taste, and you lose the flavor, and you lose all of those things along the way. And with your three, with mentorship and production succession, and really being unabashedly proud of your own brand and succinct with it is crucial. I love those three. I think they're perfect, and they describe you. You emulate them perfectly. Sheena, we're out of time today, but I want to say thank you so much for meeting up with us and talking and walking us through Made with Local. I know you guys are really busy, and I do appreciate your time.
No, thanks. This has been so fun.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, we've been talking with Sheena Russell. She is the founder and CEO of Made with Local. You can find out more on her website that I have touted nonstop. It is www.madewithlocal.ca. You can order stuff online. At very least, get on and check out the company's story. I frequently speak with a lot of companies I love, but I rarely meet with one that I can really get behind their ethos, and this is one of them. So I do appreciate it. And for everyone listening today, I appreciate you and your time. And until we speak again next time, remember to stay safe, eat well, and always bet on yourself. Sláinte.